Since the summer of 2022, when Chelsea switched ownership from Roman Abramovich to the Todd Boehly-led Clearlake Capital Consortium, one thing did not change, and that was the London club's lavish spending on transfer fees. In fact, under Boehly and Co, the London-based club have actually spent a lot of money on transfers, and so far they've only really had two transfer windows in which to actually do business dealings. In fact, their spending reached such levels that most people were actually questioning how is it that the club were not in a position where they would fall foul of UEFA's financial fair play or FFP regulations. And in fact, UEFA themselves have had to step in and actually plug a loophole that Chelsea were very cleverly exploiting throughout this time. But what is that loophole? How exactly were Chelsea exploiting it? And why did UEFA feel it was so necessary to plug that, given, truth be told, finances and stuff with regards to money and accounting is really all just a little bit of magic which is cooked up in books anyway? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. But before we talk about what exactly that loophole was, it's important to look at the sheer numbers that were involved when it comes to Chelsea's transfer spending. So numbers read something like this. Ever since 2022, or the summer of 2022, which is when the Todd Boehly-led consortium took over the club from Roman Abramovich, they've signed a total of 50 players and spent £450 million approximately on said transfers, if you're looking at the cumulative transfer fee of all these players. Now, obviously, that is a lot of money, especially considering the fact that in today's day and age, you can't just spend your way out of trouble. If you fall foul of FFP regulations, you are very much in danger of fines, transfer window bans, all of these kinds of things. They are real threats that hang over the heads of clubs like a sword. But the funny part was that if you look at the way Chelsea's accounting and in fact the way general accounting in football works, as well as a rather clever loophole that they were exploiting, it turns out they weren't really falling afoul of those regulations to begin with. But before we check into that, let's actually take a look at some of the numbers involved here, which make people concerned as to what exactly was going on and why they were spending as recklessly as they did. These 6 players were the 6 most expensive transfer fees that have been spent by the club. So you had Mykhailo Mudryk, who of course Chelsea had signed the gazumped Arsenal to sign. They spent about £89 million on him. Wesley Fofana, signed in the summer, was signed on a £70 million transfer deal. Marc Cucurella, £60 million went on him. £50 million went on Raheem Sterling. Benoit Badiashile cost about €35 million. And Khalidou Koulibaly, who was one of the main defenders signed in the summer, cost a cool £33 million. So obviously that is a lot of money that has been spent on all of these players at this point in time. And so it makes people wonder how exactly it is that Chelsea were able to still spend so lavishly in the month of January. Remember, they made quite a few additions and a lot of them don't really get covered here. So you have Mudryk and Badiashile, who have signed this January. All of the other signings are summer signings. Well, the answer lies very simply in two things. One, how it is that accounting works when it comes to transfer fees, and the other thing, the length of the contracts that Chelsea were handing out to these players. So let's take a quick look at this. And when I say that player contract length is very much the key in this, you have to understand that when you're looking at a player and how it is that they are in fact how it is that the money is assigned in accounting books. The fee of a player is amortized over a length of the deal. So for instance, if Chelsea signed Raheem Sterling for £50 million and gave him a 5-year deal, that meant that on the books they could show that as an expenditure of £10 million per financial year. So that is what actually helps keep accounting these accounts looking healthy. And this isn't some loophole that Chelsea were exploiting as such. This is pretty much how business or rather how accounting is done in football terms. It's how it's always been done. It's how clubs still do business even today. So the key with Chelsea was, of course, the player contract lengths. They were handing out contract lenses worth of about, Mykhailo Mudryk got about an 8.5-year deal. The likes of Fofana got a 7-year deal. Cucurella got a 7-year deal. So they're handing out massive lengths. So for instance, let's just do some quick math here. Mykhailo Mudryk cost £89 million, but considering that his fee will be amortized over 7.5 years, that adds up to about just a little over £10 million per year on the player. So because it's actually looked at like that in terms of accounting, they're not spending say 450 million in 1 year. That's not how the accounting works. So they can spread it out over the length of the contracts, and Chelsea have in recent times under new ownership been handing out very lengthy contract deals. So there's two reasons. One, you want to tie around the player longer and preserve value. Second, of course, being amortizing these deals over the accounting books. But UEFA clearly noticed that this was becoming a trend with Chelsea. Why? Because they have now taken steps to shut it down. How have they done that? Well, for one, UEFA's regulations now say that a transfer fee can only be amortized over a 5-year period and not more than that. So for instance, under the new regulations, now obviously these will be applied for future transfers and not past transfers. If Chelsea spends say 80 million on a player, they'll have to amortize that over 5 years. Now that doesn't stop them from handing out an 8-year deal, but the amortization on the accountancy books must be for 5 years only. It cannot be longer than that. The reason UEFA actually stepped up to combat this very obvious loophole in the system was because they felt that it would be putting clubs at risk. Because what happens when you amortize over a longer time period also is that you end up compromising your spending power over that time as well. And UEFA also felt, perhaps more importantly, is that there was a fear of other clubs following suit. So generally speaking, in football, you will not see contracts of this length handed out. A 5-year contract is considered big, and generally speaking, after that, you'll see contracts in the lengths of maybe 3 years, 4 years, sometimes even 2 or 1 year. Chelsea, on the other hand, have been signing a lot of young players and giving them massive contract extensions. So this is something that UEFA felt other clubs would also start doing and help them actually get away with amortizing the transfer fees in their account. So they've stepped in and made it a 5-year period. So that is, of course, how it is that Chelsea, in many ways, through their rather extravagant spending, ended up forcing UEFA to step in and actually bring about a cap of sorts for amortizing transfer fees. And in turn, what this will do is it will ensure that clubs again think a little carefully before splurging money extravagantly on players. And truth be told, this was something that I did see coming, and again, you guys know this about me, I'm a Chelsea fan. I was very happy with a lot of the business, but I did wonder how it is that UEFA would not sit up and notice something this blatantly obvious was happening. Now they've clearly noticed it and they've shut that loophole. Now, what do you guys think? Do you think shutting this loophole is a smart thing, or do you think clubs should be allowed to spend more money if they are in the pursuit for, sporting success? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap that bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video, and don't also forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you all once again for joining us. I hope to see you with us through the evening. For now though, goodbye.